long time since we talked. Sorry about that. But well, maybe if you don't want to talk, you could just listen. But I guess after all that, I do feel a bit more grown. But then, if I change, will Finn and Jake still love me? Will I still love them? But does growing up just change your body? Or also your soul? Maybe I could just stay the same forever. So who knows if I will ever grow up at all? I guess all I can do is listen to the heart Mo gave me. And he turned out bad. So what if I turn out bad too? But I'm different. It's not just Mo up here. It's me too. And if I cannot trust in Mo, I can trust in me. Oh boy. It sure is confusing being grown. I miss you, Mo.
Think of your favorite cartoon. It can be any cartoon you can think of that's your favorite. Amazing World of Gumball, Regular Show, Big Top Burger, The Amazing Digital Circus, Adventure Time, SpongeBob. Now that you have your cartoon in mind, let's do a thought experiment. Since you have your favorite cartoon in mind, you pretty much know it from back to front, and remember every little thing you wanted to remember about it. To the characters, to the different places, to even lore. Now, let me ask you this. When did your favorite cartoon get so serious? What he said. When did your favorite cartoon get serious? Now, I've seen this growing trend in my favorite cartoon media where they all follow the same path. A perpetual state of fame and status, and it ends indefinitely, where it has a lasting effect on how we grow up with the cartoon. You don't believe me? Or maybe some of you do believe me. But if you don't, I don't blame you. A theory without evidence is just a hypothesis. So let's turn this into a real theory. Please make sure to subscribe and turn on the notification and comment down below. And while subscribing and liking will help, you can help me with Patreon and YouTube membership. It's only $1 and it will go a long way. If you don't want to do that, then you can check out my socials to help me a lot. Thank you for watching until now. On to the video.
I love ketchup. Did you make it yourself?
So, the theory at hand engulfs how cartoons are structured through story. And talking about structures, we should probably build a better question. Instead of what we have now, let's go with, when did your favorite cartoon go from silly to serious? Okay. I know it sounded like it went from mysterious and cool to autistic and gay, but hear me out. I call this the SS effect, aka silly to serious effect. From what the name implies, it starts off very silly. Everything's nonchalant and everyone's having a good time. Then, somewhere throughout the series itself, it becomes serious. I know there's probably a term out there, but I'd rather just act blind and pretend like I just found this out like sliced bread. If you want the serious version, or the one that sounds more sophisticated, when did your favorite cartoon go from episodic to periodic? It doesn't sound as funny as silly to serious, but hey, tell me in the comments down below which one you like better. And while you're at it, Comment down below what cartoon was affected by this theory. You can apply this same theory to any cartoon you want. While the sophisticated version is more concrete, some of you might not understand what the question at hand tackles. So let's dive a little deeper into it. We will be using the sophisticated version, but we'll still call it the SS effect. The definition of episodic is a television, radio program, or magazine story broadcasted or published as a series of installments. So basically, episodic is an adjective related to episodes. You can take any cartoon with this, like Season 3, Episode 2, Club SpongeBob, where SpongeBob, Patrick, and Squidward get stranded in a kelp forest. Or what about Big Top Burger, Season 1, Episode 2, Elk, where Steve fights an elk. For some reason, I have no idea. But I think you can understand the gist of it. Any episode of any series are mostly episodic, random in nature. The definition of periodic is appearing or occurring at intervals. This adjective is related to words like reoccurring, repeated, and even regular. There is also the other term, linear, but I want to use periodic because it bounces off of episodic really easily. They all can relatively mean the same thing, to have a constant flow of a pattern, like when a story will pick up where it left off. For instance, think of Vampire Arc in Adventure Time, aka Stakes, where Marceline goes through a transformation of becoming human, but just to lose that humanity all over again. It was a consistent set plot that followed Marceline. After it was finished, we went back to the usual episodic format, but sometimes things don't go back to episodic when it gets periodically, and I'll explain more later. I think you can understand the question's purpose now, to tackle the story's plotline and to see where it takes things seriously. Because my theory at the end of the day is that every cartoon becomes periodic or linear. There are many different variations of how cartoons will periodically end, and I think with the question at hand, we need evidence in the other hand. So I think it's time to grab different pieces of evidence from different cartoons to fully finalize this theory.
You won't get away with this! What? You won't get away! What? You won't get away! What?
There were many reasons why I made Adventure Time my debut exhibit, and one of those reasons were everyone really loved the story. The story really captivated and cultured a community of people who would analyze and find value out of the stories being told throughout this world. And it's funny because in the beginning of the series, a lot of people didn't like Adventure Time, which I think that makes this one have strong evidence on how people change their point of view from episodic to periodic. In Season 1, there aren't that many interconnected episodes. Many of the episodes are episodic, for now at least, if we're only looking at Season 1. What I notice a lot of times is that there are just random XD haha moments in the series that will catch you off guard and just make you laugh. Here are some of my favorites.
An imaginary riddle master?
Do they? Feeling obnoxious. Dang, girl, if you weren't a figment of my imagination, I'd want to have your baby. What are you laughing at?
Magic.
For an uppercut, you die!
Make me.
They serve no purpose but to be funny, and don't really add anything overall to the story. This is the episodic phase, where they quite literally go on adventures. Time? Now, this had some people leave the show before finishing Season 1. It's interesting. If we exclude the later seasons and only look at Season 1, you would have no idea how deep each character is, or what emotions each one will build with one another. I understand why people left, but I also don't understand why they didn't make more of an effort. Like, the introduction of Ice King was a craze always manic who wanted to capture princesses. But if we jump 2 seasons ahead, we learn about how Ice King is Simon. He used to be a human, just like Finn. You probably wouldn't have known this if you left at season 1, because in season 2 and 3, they start their periodic phase, or linear phase, where things start to connect to one another. For instance, Marceline appearing in season 1 as a stranger and then coming back in season 2 as a friend. Same thing goes for Tree Trunks. We thought she died, but she was just transported. Although it's not very serious, it's still a pattern. But don't be mistaken to only think it got serious. There were still episodic episodes, even some of them not making any sense, like season 2 episode 11, The Chamber of Frozen Blades, where Finn and Jake use ice powers, which doesn't make any sense and does not or haven't been followed up on. This pattern I've seen is that in most cases for cartoons, they start off very lenient and random, not really seeking to keep the plot moving, but to show off what they have to offer at first. It's like finding your own people. You build your community brick by brick, but then once you find your audience, you continue the plot. Like season 6, episode 1 and 2, where Finn meets his father, but a bunch of things happen, like the Lich getting unbroken or unfrozen, and his father trying to run away. At the end of the day, he loses his arm while losing his father again, which stays like that throughout upcoming seasons, where he has to deal with the trauma of losing his father. He also comes to realization that his arm is supposed to be like that because of his reincarnation of every life he had. They all had a missing arm. Do you see the little reoccurring patterns? This sign of the periodic phase is creeping in, where things start to really progress. That was my evidence for Adventure Time, that shows start off very episodically, then slowly and surely seeps in the periodic nature, or linear. But what if it's hard to tell when things become progressive, to the point where you think there isn't any periodic evidence? Well, let's look at Exhibit 2.
Yeah, but the hose!
Oh, what? It's too hard to get the hose?
Amazing World of Gumball. This cartoon is pure chaos, but the type of chaos that is welcome. There's no telling what you would get in these episodes. Like for instance, let me just pick a random episode. Again, season 4, episode 31, The Night. In this episode, we go into the dreams of everyone in Elmore. It's a pretty funny episode. The next one on, episode 32, The Misunderstanding, has nothing to do with the last one. It's where Gumball has a misunderstanding about a meetup with his girlfriend, Penny. And it's kind of lucky that I picked these 2 random episodes because it reminds me of the evidence. Gumball never had a girlfriend in the beginning of the show. Just like Adventure Time, things started off pretty random. But with this show, it stayed random for the most part. I'm pretty sure it's due to its genre, being a comedy cartoon instead of being a fantasy. They even had a joke episode where all the damage they did to Elmore came back to bite them. Even though it's about comedy, it also sneaks in periodic phases, like when Penny broke out of her shell and started dating Gumball. And this led on to many different episodes where even Gumball had to step between the family when Penny stepped out of her shell. Or, get this, even the lore about how Darwin became Gumball's brother. Even though it was set in the past, it's still considered linear. It's harder to see or to point out when crucial moments happen, but you really don't have to pay any attention to when it does. They are still there, just hidden throughout. My favorite one is when they changed voice actors with a music video, but symbolized it as them growing up. It was special in a way, because like I said in the beginning of the video, cartoons change when they grow up with you. One thing I didn't get to mention is that the ending of both Adventure Time and Amazing World of Gumball are both periodic or linear. They have a serious note, and whatever message they have at the end, it's gonna mean something. For instance, the Amazing World of Gumball, how Rod fell through the hole and he was trying to protect everyone, and yet we are left on a cliffhanger. However the show will end, it will probably end very seriously or with a special message, or it would just be funny. Same thing for Adventure Time. That ended on Finn and Jake dying and its new reincarnations. Whether or not if our favorite cartoons continue or to end, they must have at least some conclusion to them, because nothing could last forever. And I'll talk about that more later. But with that, that's my evidence for Amazing World of Gumball. Even though it's a comedy show, it still has periodic moments, like Adventure Time. While I used Adventure Time to show a clear periodic shift throughout the series, and Amazing World of Gumball demonstrates this in smaller and subtle ways, what about a show that just starts off with a periodic structure? That brings us to Exhibit 3.
You can't escape me! I'll chase you to the ends of the earth!
Before we go into Exhibit 3, I wanted to shout out my favorite artists in my Discord. One of the things I've wanted to do in making a community is to make sure that artists get known for their work, and I just hope that you guys could come join my Discord and post your art there. If you want to be in my Discord, links down below. Avatar: The Last Airbender. This cartoon is something that I've always wanted to talk about because its structure is based on a periodic method, or commonly known as a linear storytelling. You might ask me, if it's based on a periodic method, then what about episodic episodes? Well, my dear viewer, thank you for asking questions. Never feel dumb for asking them. There are indeed episodic moments, but they come in a term called filler episodes. It means to have unrelated episodes to fill in the gaps of serious moments, so to keep you filled. And now mentioning filler episodes, looking back at Adventure Time, people referred season 1 as mostly filler episodes because it really didn't push the plot any further than just only world building. And world building is very important, but really you just need enough information about the plot so you can keep up with the story. And I can understand why episodic and filler episodes are basically the same. If you don't watch an episodic or filler episode, your view on the story won't change. It will still be the same with or without those episodes. And we'll talk about that more later. We first need to talk about how Avatar: The Last Airbender represents itself when new episodes come out. So with the cartoon being mostly periodic, do you guys remember the beginning of each episode? You know, water, earth, fire, air. Long ago, the 4 nations lived together in harmony. This is why I picked this show. It might seem simple to you that the intro plays this little clip, but imagine if you didn't know anything about this cartoon and you watch the episodes ahead. I find it brilliant because due to its time period, they didn't have much of a streaming platform. But nowadays, we don't have that problem because we have everything at the tip of our fingers, aka YouTube and Google. But the way that they told a story through its intro, so you know who the main character is perfect. Sadly, that is a problem as well with a periodic show. You can't start anywhere. You must start at the beginning to follow its story. But the way the artists made sure to at least try to grab your attention through the intro was amazing. I think that's why it became a meme. Hearing the saying "when the Fire Nation attacked" just made it popular. But with looking at all of that, I think it's time to look at episode 1 for my evidence. I'm not fully diving into it, but just giving you a summary. We're introduced to the main cast, Katara and Sokka. They are on a fishing trip until Katara starts to accidentally bend water due to her emotions and break an iceberg. This iceberg was holding or hiding a ball of ice that emits light, with Aang popping out. Some shenanigan happens and lures drop, and that's the end of the episode. With episode 2, guess what happens? It starts where it left off. I know, I'm acting like the wheel was just made, but this is amazing. It's far different from Exhibit 1 and 2. But don't be mistaken, even with its differences, they both act the same. 1, 2, and 3 all cartoons have a periodic ending, or the SS effect. But with this cartoon, instead of being silly, it's serious at the beginning and serious at the end. Remember when I was talking about filler episodes? Well, let's see how Avatar: The Last Airbender handled their episodic moments. We'll be looking at Book 2 Earth, Episode 15, The Tales of Bossing Se. I won't lie to you, this episode is filled with so much emotion. I cried while writing this script. We first need to talk about a character that joins the crew later throughout the episodes named Toph. She's a blind earthbender that helps Aang connect with the Earth tribe more. She is the ultimate earthbender and is the one who discovered metal bending before anyone else did in this time period. In this episode, Katara and Toph go out on a girl's day out. It's a little special character development. Since Toph doesn't really know what she looks like, or how she acts, or how she's being perceived, she particularly doesn't act very girly. And also, she was raised by moles. I forgot to add that part, but yeah, you can kind of see where this goes. They go and do a typical spa day, and they're actually having a good time. Then this happens.
Well, that wasn't so bad. I'm not usually into that stuff, but I actually feel girly.
I'm glad. It's about time we did something fun together.
Wow, great makeup. Thanks. For a clown.
And even though she shows them a lesson, it still hurts. To be called something you can't even see or imagine, it hurts. I know it sounds like I'm speaking from experience, but I just know deep down, words can hurt a person. And although words can hurt, you can also heal from them.
One of the good things about being blind is that I don't have to waste my time worrying about appearances. I don't care what I look like. I'm not looking for anyone's approval.
That's what I really admire about you, Toph. You're so strong and confident and self-assured. And I know it doesn't matter, but you're really pretty.
I am?
Yeah.
This part did not contribute to the story. If you missed this episode, nothing would have changed. But even though that's true, it still was an amazing episode to see. It progressed the relationships of characters and strengthened the ties of characters, even more being relatable. Also, you get to see an experience that happens to others in real life. And I'm forever grateful for something that didn't move the story along, but moved my heart. There were a lot of other things that happened in this episode as well. An honor to one of the greatest voice actors who passed away, Aang building a zoo, and another character fumbling love. This episode is still as important as the lore bits of any other. You choose to watch it, to see what you gain from it. And that was my evidence for Avatar: The Last Airbender, that even though it was mostly periodic or a linear storytelling, it still had episodes that were episodic like regular cartoons, proving that even if they follow a linear method, it still uses the same style of blending episodic with periodic. But what if a cartoon never had periodic moments? I'm talking about not a single episode being linear, no periodic moments whatsoever, all laughs and no worries. We must head over to our last exhibit.
The Bible.
This is the Bible.
You question the words of the mighty Jimmy?
You take the moon and you take the sun. You take everything about this cartoon that makes it fun. I mean, nothing about this cartoon was boring. For crying out loud, each episode was so random and wacky with no plot to be followed, but your imagination of what would happen next. The cartoon was so wacky and so against the ideas of being periodic that it broke the fourth wall multiple times. Here are some of my favorites.
Hey, don't write there.
Why not? Oh. There. Oh no!
Stop. Okay. There.
What about that one?
Yeah, that one doesn't come off.
Can I have an egg now? Uh-oh. Ah!
No money means no animation.
What are we gonna do?
Rather.
But not only did it break the fourth wall, but it broke my jaw for how funny it was. The comedy of Chowder still holds up till this day. And to give you a refresher on when it was made, it was all the way back in 2007. Yes, 2007. It broke my mind that a cartoon from 17 years ago do better than some of these cartoons nowadays in 2024. And it stopped airing. But back to the point at hand. Just like Amazing World of Gumball, Chowder was the predecessor to the comedy genre of cartoons. But what makes Chowder so unique is that it doesn't have a single periodic episode where it tries to progress the story in some way. Well, it does have a episode where it tells of Mung Dol, Chowder's master, giving a lore about his background, about how, well, Mung Dol was a chef. But that was pretty much it. Yep, the cartoon is random, and there's no episodes where it tries to progress the story. Well, there is this one episode that is very notable, and it does progress the story. It's called Chowder Grows Up. And let's just say, in this episode, it deals with the topics of things not lasting forever. If you've been following this video up until now, you can kind of see that the SS effect took a hold really quickly just with one episode. It goes about how Chowder doesn't want to grow up, but sadly he has to come to terms with it or he hurts everyone around him. And in a way, this is relatable in real life. If you don't grow up and find your footing, it can cause the people around you to be hurt. And wrapping back around to the cartoon, I'm glad that it ended. Just like Chowder growing up, the cartoon also grew up, and it can't last forever. Even though we would like more seasons, more episodes, and just more of the funny Chowder, it virtually can't last forever. And the ending for Chowder was pretty good. Well, in the case of Chowder, I don't know if growing up with Panini and having 50 babies was the plan. Wait a minute, 50 babies? How much does a baby cost? 18, do the math, carry over the 1. Chowder and Panini must have at least $900,000 just to have 50 babies. In this economy? That's wild. But back to the point. In a way, the show was actually telling us or gearing us up for this moment because the growth of Chowder was from an apprentice to a chef. Throughout the series, he was learning from Mung Dol, but now it's his turn to pass those lessons to his own apprentice, effectively ending the show. And that was my evidence for Chowder. The whole show being episodic except for one episode to end the series off with. I don't know, I think you guys can finally see the trend I'm talking about. In each of my exhibits, they all end in a certain way that makes them connected to one another. One might be lighthearted, the other might be really sad, or the one might be really serious. But that's my theory about how cartoons may either start off episodic or periodic. But at the end of the day, they will end periodically no matter what. But why? Why do shows transition from episodic to periodic? Well, to give you the blunt answer, my conclusion is that all of these cartoons are giving us the pieces to grow up. In the beginning of the video, I gave you a little hint to this part of this section, and I hope I didn't mislead you by saying you would look at cartoons differently. Well, I wanted you to look at cartoons differently in a perspective of not only it's a little silly story, but a life lesson. Cartoons have a life cycle just as much as humans do, and they grow up just as fast too. Not all cartoons can live forever, and it's funny that I say that because most of the time, companies try and try again to reboot or re-air old cartoons just to get money. No art innovation, no new stories, just money. And you can probably see that with a lot of shows like Family Guy, Simpsons, or hell, even SpongeBob. A lot of people say that SpongeBob ended around season 1, 2, 3, and the movie when he became the manager of the Krusty Krab. That goes for the same thing with the Fairy Odd Parents. Some say that it ended when Channel Chasers, the movie, aired. It's a tricky limbo for some cartoons that don't end. And sometimes it's not really the company's fault, but the artist behind the cartoon. Take for instance the creator of Ren and Stimpy. That dude went so mad and off the wall that he drove everyone away from him. And at the same time, it's the same thing for companies as well. Think of OKKO. That cartoon was rushed and it had so much knowledge for a cartoon to learn from that could actually help you define your morals. Or Owl House, a story where a girl finds her way into a magical world where she felt alienated in her normal world, but in this wacky world, she can find herself anew. Or what about Infinity Train? Solving problems head on, no more hiding from the truth, and facing pain with one another. I could go on and on and on, but the point of this theory was not to only shine light on how cartoons give us a way to still be a kid and learn adult lessons, but to help us grow up into adults that still have imaginations. Just take for instance, replace Chowder with any other cartoon like Wonder Over Yonder. Replace Avatar The Last Airbender with Infinity Train. Replace Adventure Time with Regular Show. Replace Amazing World of Gumball with Gravity Falls. All of these cartoons are interchangeable with this theory. It makes me happy to see new cartoons as well, like Big Top Burger, Punch Punch Forever, or Digital Circus. These indie-filled projects make me smile because they all take something from old cartoons while bringing in new humor. And I know by the end of each show, it will have a periodic ending where it will be set in stone with a lesson or a final hoorah or a laughed track played. I don't even know what it would be. In a way, all of these cartoons remind me of Batman, the Brave and the Bold ending. That it really reminds us that it's a cartoon, that some kid out there was watching the final endings of his favorite cartoon wrapping up, props and objects being put away and characters acting like actors after a movie. We forget how powerful cartoons can be when we grow up, that it can be a core memory and help us through life like a parent giving a lesson. Why do cartoons end like this? So that they won't hurt us, so that we have a final goodbye, that one last episode to remember and to hold dear to our hearts. Just like a loved one, death is not the end, but the beginning of a celebration for respect, love, and memories to hold. When death really happens, it's when they are forgotten. So don't forget. Don't forget to be grateful. Don't forget the voice actors, the animators, the artists, the team, the cartoon. Don't forget where they came from.